Right. So she says there's certain things all humans need simply to survive. Right? Others that we need to thrive individually as well as collectively. And so notice what she's going to be doing here. She's going to try to combine the how we're made individually, and then she's going to try to produce a collective way of dealing with ethics from this natural law perspective. Because, you usually think, well, natural law is this individual person is made this way, and so therefore they should behave this way or something like that. And she wants to make it individually as well as collectively in communities and that sort of thing. And so she says there are certain things that all humans, need to survive, and others that we need to thrive both in communities and individually. And she says others that we need to exercise our intended roles vis-a-vis one another, the creation, and God. But these things we need, she tells us, are not limited to specific objects such as food, water, and oxygen. Certain ways of ordering our own thoughts, behaviors, and desires are also necessary. So it's not just these things, but there's ways of life, ways of, behavior, that sort of thing, that are also necessary. If, she says, creatures like us are to thrive and fulfill our diverse roles in God's kingdom. These necessary, quote, ways of ordering our lives furnish the content, she tells us, of ethics, right? And so what are they? Well, she says love, forgiveness, mutual respect, empathy, all elements of the natural law are not built into our DNA in the sense that these things come easily to us. But love, forgiveness, mutual respect, and empathy are essential to our full-fledged development individually as well as in communities. So those kinds of things, those kinds of, actually, you might say, character traits, perhaps, are part of what is built into us from being created in God's image.
Right. Right. And I think this is a very good point that she has to kind of slow down and make the point, because like as all analogies break down, my train analogy breaks down too, because how does a train get derailed other than it becomes, deviant in its behavior? But here, having love and forgiveness, mutual respect, those things seem at times to come hard to humanity, and to what degree and to what extent, and why don't we see that as being the easy flow, like putting a train on the train tracks? And so she has to say that that it's not built into our DNA per se, but that kind of the teleos, the endpoint of humanity, should search for that as well. And one of the things when studying criminal justice too is, you study what's called deviant behavior, and whether that's in youth, and so you have deviant children, but that just springs from, it deviates from the norm. And so when you're studying kind of how laws are written, you are looking at are they deviant behavior, and the people should know better, and you're just looking for a kind of a citation to punish people according to the don't steal and don't kill each other and don't burn down each other's property, or is a law crafted in order to get people on the right track? And then what happens if all people don't read the law and don't know that they're being deviant? So all those things come into play. And so talking about kind of the natural order brings into question those types of responses, which I think she's going to try and head off here. Well, according to the natural law conception of ethics, God created human nature with a particular, what she calls, theme in mind, and for not just for us, but for the universe as a whole. This point about theme and variation applies not only at the level of how individuals are to lead their individual lives, but also at the level of how societies ought to function. So individuals, and then collectively, how different societies organize themselves. And then, then you get into the postmodern, like, well, this society is slightly different from theirs, so who's to call one or the other? But then the natural perspective is probably going to point out, well, but if you look at the whole scope of all these different societies, we can probably recognize that they have a lot of similarities as well. And so where do we get that similarities if all these different societies, which are made up of individuals, are all, their own separate entities that don't have much more than just biological commonalities involved with each other. Well, more than one way of organizing society can be honoring of the human nature. So there's more than one way to skin the cat in this game. Right. Still, not just any way of organizing society is compatible with natural law. So again, it doesn't mean that all societies are going to look the same. They could have different attitudes, means. Just from an environmental perspective, or the way that societies are laid out with cities and rural areas, could mean that different goods, good as in ethical goods, might arise from that type of organization or that type of impact, especially environmental. Just because you have differences within society doesn't mean that, well, then just anything goes. What she's saying is that there's not just any way of organizing society is compatible with natural law. A society's total structure must honor basic facts of human nature. So if you're building into those societies, even though they're different societies, within the scope of understanding of trying to get to the basic facts of human nature, then no matter what the differences in those societies, all those people in that group are going to be going towards a common good, which she's rooting in the human characteristic.
Yeah, part of it is obviously there are certain, what she's suggesting here is there are certain ways to live in society that if you don't, then you don't have a good functioning society, and eventually, it could fall apart, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's really interesting how she's weaving in not only the individual, behavior, like I mentioned earlier, but also collectively and from a society level.